Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and multimodal intelligent graph reasoning. Marcus J. Mbula. Mbula at MIT.edu. Abstract. Leveraging generative artificial intelligence, AI, we have transformed a dataset comprising 1,000 scientific papers focused on biological materials into a comprehensive ontological knowledge graph. Through an in-depth structural analysis of this graph, we have calculated node degrees, identified communities along with their connectivities, and evaluated clustering coefficients and between the centrality of pivotal nodes, uncovering fascinating knowledge architectures. We find that the graph has an inherently scale-free nature, shows a high level of connectedness, and can be used as a rich source for downstream graph reasoning by taking advantage of transitive and isomorphic properties to reveal insights into unprecedented interdisciplinary relationships that can be used to answer queries, identify gaps in knowledge, propose never-before-seen material designs, and predict material behaviors. Using a large language embedding model, we compute deep node representations and use combinatorial node similarity ranking to develop a path sampling strategy that allows us to link dissimilar concepts that have previously not been related. One comparison revealed detailed structural parallels between biological materials and Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, highlighting shared patterns of complexity through isomorphic mapping. In another example, the algorithm proposed an innovative hierarchical mycelium-based composite based on integrating path sampling with principles extracted from Kandinsky's Composition 7 painting. The resulting material integrates an innovative set of concepts that include a balance of chaos and order, adjustable porosity, mechanical strength, and complex patterned chemical functionalization. We uncover other isomorphisms across science, technology, and art, revealing a nuanced ontology of immanence that reveal a context-dependent heterarchical interplay of constituents. Because our method transcends established disciplinary boundaries through diverse data modalities, graphs, images, text, numerical data, etc., graph-based. Generative AI achieves a far higher degree of novelty, explorative capacity, and technical detail than conventional approaches and establishes a widely useful framework for innovation by revealing hidden connections. Keywords language modeling times scientific AI times biomaterials times bio-inspired materials times inverse problems times generative AI times materials science times multidisciplinary times natural language processing times computer vision times materials informatics. 1. Introduction. In the evolving landscape of knowledge discovery, the intersection of computational techniques with data mining has become an active area of investigation. One of the grand challenges is to find ways by which information mined from diverse sources can be modeled and understood and used as a basis for further discovery to expand the horizon of understanding. Due to the sheer volumes of data, this has remained challenging, especially when developing strategies to extrapolate from existing knowledge towards never-before-seen ideas or behaviors. Through the use of large language models, LLMs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in scientific analysis, the development of new ideas and hypotheses has emerged as a possible approach. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. An area of great interest is in context learning, the ability of a model. Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, 77 Mass. Ave 1 to 165, Cambridge, Massachusetts, 02139 USA. R14 2403.11996 v2, CSLG, the 26th of March. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, to adapt its responses based on the context provided in the prompt. The Cont3 extension can include various forms of data, examples, or any relevant information. The model uses this immediate context to perform a wide range of tasks without needing task-specific training data or fine-tuning. Thereby, LLMs have been shown a capacity to synthesize a level of sophisticated understanding, such as translating between languages a model has not been trained on. 15. For example, when the Gemini 1.5 model, released in 2024, was fed a grammar manual for Calamang, a language spoken by very few individuals, the model acquired the ability to translate English to Calamang with proficiency comparable to that of a human studying the same material. These and other emergent behaviors point to a realistic possibility that powerful AI systems can be used, potentially, for knowledge discovery. We postulate that in order to achieve that, the provision of proper context to facilitate the act of discovery is essential. Earlier research has used category theory to develop ontological representations of knowledge using graphs. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We build on this general concept and develop ontological representations using natural language processing and generative AI that spans multiple modalities, text, images, numerical data, etc. Our aim is to utilize generative AI to connect different areas of knowledge by focusing the generative task on finding analogies, or by tasking the AI model to identify, propose, or explain relationships between disparate concepts or knowledge. Innovation, scientific discovery as well as many creative processes are indeed based on these underpinning mechanisms, whether the aim is to find a solution to a problem, to explain an observation, or to predict behaviors of systems that have not been studied before. These tasks can be viewed as a sort of path-finding process where we want to uncover one or more rational ways to connect ideas. From a theoretical perspective, this process can be described as a graph where nodes and edges provide a way to capture the relationships and, by extension, the pathways towards deeper understanding and ultimately, discovery. This strategy thereby guides the discovery process through graph-based reasoning. If the graph structure used for this process can be constructed with rigorous methodologies, e.g. data mining, embedding models, etc., the entire mechanism of discovery can be leveraged by an autonomous system that intelligently explores new connections, new insights, and new possibilities. This represents a model of thinking and forms a rigorous foundation to enable innovation. This general approach also relates with what is referred to as augmented thinking proposed in 21, especially since through the use of generative AI we can easily incorporate a wealth of diverse data sources, methods, and context. In fact, as emphasized in the concept of augmented thinking, a strong focus on the interface of disciplines to generate new ideas, discoveries, and technological advancements is critical. We hypothesize that generative AI can be effective in solving these tasks if asked to think about structured graph representations. Naturally, multimodal AI systems like LLMs can ingest a wealth of additional representations from images to instructions, and more. Graph representations also provides a rich set of theoretical tools through graph theory, 22-23. For instance, we can use graph theory to extract nodes in a network that play significant roles in its functionality, connectivity, or efficiency. Their importance can be understood and quantified using various measures, including betweenness centrality, degree centrality, and closeness centrality, among others. Betweenness centrality is particularly insightful for identifying critical nodes. It measures the extent to which a node lies on the shortest paths between other nodes in the network. Nodes with high betweenness centrality scores are seen as critical because they serve as important bridges within the network. If these nodes are removed or fail, they significantly disrupt the flow within the network, making them crucial for maintaining the network's overall connectivity. Applied to graph representation of knowledge, this can be used to identify research topics or to formulate hypotheses. Critical nodes can guide the exploration of new knowledge since they are situated at the intersection of important concepts, and hence they can offer insights into related areas of study or suggest new connections that were not immediately apparent or that are, in the state of current knowledge, weak links. A basic element that we can take advantage of in graph reasoning are transitive relationships in graphs. Given a set of nodes n and a set of edges e in a graph G, the transitive property can be succinctly defined as follows: if an edge exists from node A to node B, have a B, and an edge exists from node B to node C, BC, then a transitive relationship exists such that A is connected to C, a C, through B. Formally, this is represented as turned A, B, C set membership symbol N, a B, lambda, B, C, a C. As an example, within the context of biology and the study of silk proteins. 1. The B gene A encodes a protein B crucial for silk strength. 2. BC, protein B interacts with another protein P to form silk fibers C. By the transitive property, we deduce 3. A C gene A indirectly contributes to silk fiber formation through protein B's interaction with protein P. Now, extending this framework. 4. C D silk fibers C can be utilized as scaffolds in wound healing D. 2. Accelerating scientific discovery with by the transitive property, we can deduce a chain of relationships. 5. A D gene A through the production and interaction of proteins B and P, and the application of silk fibers C as scaffolds, indirectly can contribute to wound healing technology D. This example elucidates how the transitive property assists in unraveling direct and indirect interactions between concepts. To make the point more clear in terms of how information and knowledge is accessible, let us assume that a subset of knowledge is contained in one paper that results in a small subgraph, e.g. nodes A, B and C, that is, the paper may cover how gene A encodes protein B and how that interacts with protein P to form silk fibers, C. Another paper may discuss the relationship between silk fibers C and wound healing D, but without discussing how silk fibers form. By combining the subgraphs from these two papers into a large, integrated graph, we can take advantage of the transitive properties as exemplified above and thereby discover new relationships that link A, B, P, C and D. Figure 1 visualizes an overview of the approach used in this study, reflecting a flowchart of key elements that range from knowledge extraction, distillation, graph construction, and reasoning. Figure 1 specifically visualizes the strategic objective to convert information, the answer to who, what, where, and when are type questions, into knowledge about how. Information is relatively easily accessible and can be recorded in books, papers, reports, can extracted using data mining techniques, and can be transmitted easily. Knowledge, in contrast, is typically harder to communicate and can be difficult to transfer from one person to another or from humans to AI systems and back. We use a computational scheme based on a series of generative processing steps to construct a graph representation of knowledge, which then forms the basis for wide-ranging analyses in a variety of downstream tasks. These include running queries on the graph to answer questions, connecting disparate concepts within the graph by finding the shortest path or a set of alternative paths, as well as complementing the graph with new knowledge derived either from separate generative processes or physics-based simulations, or adding additional original data sources, e.g. papers, reports, etc., to it. We use several large language models, LLMs, in this paper, including open-source models and state-of-the-art proprietary models like GPT-4o and Claude for Opus. We discuss the rationale behind these choices in the paper, emphasizing the need of different capabilities for distinct tasks and a desire to better understand strengths and weaknesses of each. For instance, one of the open-source models used is XLORA-24, a LLM inspired by biological principles, as it is capable of dynamically rearranging its own structure before responding to a task. This is achieved by augmenting the conventional inference strategy of LLMs to feature two forward passes, which trains the model to first think about the question and how it may reconfigure itself before responding. This implements a simple reflection of self-awareness, whereby the model is able to adapt its own self to best solve a task. As a result, the model, even though it has a relatively small parameter count of 7 billion parameters, can reason across diverse scientific domains, biological materials, math, physics, chemistry, logic, mechanics, etc., significantly enhancing its capacity for generating innovative solutions. 1.1 Paper Outline. The plan of this paper is as follows. We first review the construction of the global ontological knowledge graph from a corpus of scientific papers. We then provide a detailed analysis of the resulting graph structure and its properties. This is followed by a series of systematic experiments in which we exploit the graph for quantitative analyses. These include using reasoning over information extraction, identification of research opportunities, predicting new materials designs with exquisite details about molecular, chemical, mechanical, and structural features, as well as a rigorous method to relate disparate knowledge domains for scientific discovery at the frontier of scientific understanding. The experiments are geared towards expanding the horizon of knowledge to identify and reason over new hypotheses, predicted behaviors, and innovative ideas. For instance, we will show how this approach can relate seemingly disparate concepts such as Beethoven's Ninth Symphony with bio-inspired materials science. Details on the numerical methods, including links to the code base, are included in the materials and methods section. 2. Results and discussion. The process of developing the model consists of the following steps, as shown in Figure 1b. 1. Identification of a corpus of knowledge, here developed via a literature analysis, for details on how the set of papers was identified, see 11. 2. Distillation of knowledge into structured raw contexts that address specific aspects of scientific understanding, including a summary of the subject, reasoning, and details that are critical. 3. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. Figure 1. Overview of the approach used here. Panel depicts the strategic objective to convert information, the answer to who, what, where, and when questions, into knowledge about how. While information is relatively easily accessible and can be recorded in books, it can be transmitted easily. Knowledge, in contrast, is typically harder to communicate and can be hard to transfer from one person to another. Panel B shows how we solve this problem by first converting a set of scientific articles into markup language, then into text chunks, which then form the basis to distill their content into a concise scientific summary. The raw content then forms the basis to generate triples for a graph, first created at the level of each of the text chunks and then assembled into a global graph by concatenating all local graphs. 4. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. 3. Generation of triples for graph construction, concepts and their relationships, based on the structured raw context that resulted from the distillation process. 4. Concatenation of all triples into a global graph. 5. Analysis of the global graph through node embeddings using a deep learning text encoder model, simplification steps, and optionally removing small or unconnected fragments, e.g. to consider only the giant component. 6. Utilization of the ontological knowledge graph for multimodal graph reasoning. This process is complemented by a variety of additional steps, such as adding new graphs or subgraphs to the global graph, along with various methods to extract subgraphs from the global graphs via in-context queries, e.g. identifying multiple ranked shortest path traversals, subgraphs based on multi-hop analyses, and others. 2.1 Construction and analysis of the global graph. Figure 1b showcases how we process information into knowledge through a series of natural language processing steps. Details see materials and methods. This is done by first converting a set of scientific articles into markup language, then into text chunks, which then form the basis to distill their content into a concise scientific summary. The raw content then forms the basis to generate triplets for graphs, first created at the level of each of the local text chunks, and then assembled into a global graph by concatenating all triples. Figure 2 shows the global graph and an illustration of the deep and wide connectivity of nodes. Figure 2 depicts the entire graph, left, followed by successively zoomed-in views of the graph structure. At the highest magnification, individual nodes and node labels become visible. Similarly, Figure 2b shows a progression over increasing magnification, albeit with the node with label and acre highlighted, and the rest grayed out, revealing the wide-ranging connections across the global graph. These intricate connections will later be explored to identify complex never-before-seen relationships between concepts. Figure 3 depicts a summary of graph statistics of the global graph. Figure 3a shows a log-log plot of a degree distribution, and Figure 3b shows results of a principal component analysis, PCA, of the node embeddings. Table 1 shows a summary of the global graph properties, including a subset of analysis for the giant component of the global graph, respectively. The analysis of the giant component is significant since it reflects largest connected component that contains a significant portion of the entire network's nodes. The existence of a giant component, as seen here, often indicates that the network has reached a critical level of connectivity, enabling extensive interaction or communication across a large portion of the network. For the specific application studied here, the giant component of the knowledge graph represents its most interconnected and information-rich part. Hence, it likely plays a crucial role in knowledge representation, accessibility, and discovery, and is useful for subsequent analysis, all graph data provided via supplementary information. Table 1, comparison of the properties of the global graph and its giant component. Property global graph giant component number of nodes 12319, 11878 number of edges 15752, 15396 average node degree 2.56 2.59 density 0.000210 0.00022 number of communities 10980. Samples of a few closest nodes to the centroid in each of the clusters are summarized in Table S1. The analysis shows that the embedding model successfully captures related terms in similar regions, providing confidence that we can use this model to identify relationships between search terms and node features. Figure 5 shows an analysis of the features of the communities in the graph. First, Figure 5 shows the size of all communities, where we find that the community sizes follow a right-skewed distribution, with a few communities being significantly larger than the rest. This might indicate a potential scale-free or hierarchical structure where a few communities dominate by size. For a more detailed analysis, Figure 5b shows the average node degree for each community, revealing that most communities have a relatively stable average degree, which suggests that within communities, nodes have a similar number of connections. It is evident that there are a few outliers with significantly higher average degrees, indicating that certain communities may be more densely connected internally. Figure 5c depicts the average clustering coefficient for each community. The data shows that the clustering coefficient, a measure of the degree to which nodes in a graph tend to cluster together. The analysis shows that most communities have a low average clustering coefficient, with some exceptions. This indicates that, on average, there is not a strong tendency for nodes to form tightly knit groups within most communities, but there are a few communities that are exceptions to this trend. Figure 5d shows the average between the centrality of the nodes in each community. Between the centrality measures the extent to which a node lies on paths between other nodes. The plot reveals a relatively uniform distribution. 5. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. Figure 2, overview of the global graph, Panel A, multiple magnifications, Panel B, an illustration of the deep and wide connectivity of nodes, Panel C. Panel B depicts the entire graph, followed by successively zoomed-in views of the graph structure. At the highest magnification, individual nodes and node labels become visible. Panel B shows a similar progression, albeit with one of the nodes, Nacre, highlighted, and the rest grayed out, revealing the wide-ranging connections across the global graph. 6. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative. Figure 3, summary of graph statistics of the global graph, complementing the analysis in Table 1. Panel A shows a log-log plot of the degree distribution, and Panels B and C a principal component analysis of the node embeddings, for 5 clusters in B and 10 clusters in C. Panels DF show the same analysis, but for the giant component of the graph only. 7. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. Of between the centrality among the top nodes across communities, with some variance. This suggests that in each community, there are a few nodes that play a significant role in connecting members of the community to the rest of the network. However, no single community stands out as having an exceptionally high betweenness centrality, which might have indicated a critical or controlling community in terms of network flow. This underscores the overall connectedness of the concepts captured in the corpus of knowledge. A related analysis is depicted in Figure 5e, where we show an analysis of the modularity score and community connectivity. Modularity is a measure of the structure of networks or graphs which measures the strength of division of a network into communities. Networks with high modularity have dense connections between the nodes within modules but sparse connections between nodes in different modules. A modularity score can range from -0.5 to 1, where values close to 1 typically indicate strong community structure. The plot suggests that the modularity score of the analyzed network is quite high, around 0.9. As can be seen in Figure 5e, bottom, the average number of intra-community edges is significantly higher than the inter-community edges, which is consistent with a network that has a high modularity score, Figure 5e, top. Hence, this network seems to exhibit strong community structure, with more connections within communities than between them. This affirms our finding that this network features well-defined clusters or groups. Figure 4 depicts the degree distributions of the top nodes within 6 different communities. Each subplot corresponds to one community and displays the degrees of what appears to be the 5 nodes with the highest degree within that community. We present a brief analysis of each of the communities. In Community 1, we see that the degrees of the top nodes vary significantly, with collagen microfibrils having the highest degree, indicating that it is likely a central or hub node within this community. The presence of such a hub could suggest that this community is organized around a few key concepts or elements that are highly interconnected. This agrees with the central role collagen microfibrils play in defining structural, mechanically relevant biomaterials, describing a key design feature of biological systems wherein collagen is the most abundant structural protein in nature, 25. In Community 2 we also find a hub-like node labeled strength, suggesting its pivotal role within the community. The other top nodes, such as stiffness and toughness, have relatively high degrees as well, pointing to a community likely focused on mechanical properties of materials, where these properties are critical. In Community 3 we see that one node, biological materials, dominates this community with a degree much higher than the others. This kind of dominance indicates a highly central concept that could be pivotal in the structure and dynamics of this community, possibly acting as a key connector to other parts of the network. The second highest ranked node is hierarchical structure, reflecting the most dominating design principle in biological material composition. In Community 4, we can see that the degree distribution among the top nodes is more balanced compared to the previous communities, even though our biocompatibility stands out. This suggests a more evenly distributed network structure without a single overwhelming hub. In that community, other top nodes are cell adhesion and cell proliferation, associating closely with important biological mechanisms by which tissues grow and remodel. In Community 5, similar to the structure seen in Community 3, mechanical properties has a significantly higher degree than other nodes, indicating its central importance within this community. Several other important nodes are listed, such as materials and scaffolds, playing a central role within this domain. Finally, in Community 6 we again see one node, collagen, with a degree much higher than the others, signifying its central role within the community's network structure. This node is followed by a variety of related concepts, notably hydroxyapatite, but also engineered material components like graphene nanosheets. Our understanding of this particular area of knowledge confirms that these are indeed key features that define the field. These results suggest that we have a network with a heterogeneous distribution of node centrality, with certain nodes playing disproportionately significant roles within their communities. This could be indicative of a scale-free network characteristic within individual communities, or even the entire graph. We will now explore this feature in more detail. Average betweenness centrality in the context of network analysis is a measure that quantifies the average extent to which nodes stand between each other on their shortest paths through the network. Betweenness centrality itself is a way of identifying the importance of a node within the network, based on the number of shortest paths that pass through the node. Nodes with high betweenness centrality are often considered key connectors or bridges within the network, facilitating or controlling the flow of information, or any other entity being modeled, between different parts of the network. The average betweenness centrality of a set of nodes, for example, within a community in a network, is calculated by taking the mean of the betweenness centrality scores of all the nodes in that set. This average gives an indication of how influential the typical node in the set is, in terms of connecting different parts of the network. In the context of community analysis, a high average betweenness centrality for a community might suggest that the community contains several nodes that play critical roles in connecting the community to other parts of the network. Conversely, a low average might indicate that the community is more insular, with fewer connections to other communities or parts of the network. Hence, the measure of average between the centrality provides a measure of the overall importance of a group of nodes, such as a community, in facilitating connectivity and flow within the larger network structure. 8. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. Figure 4. Degree distributions of the top nodes within 6 different communities. Each subplot corresponds to one community and displays the degrees of what appears to be the 5 nodes with the highest degree within that community. The communities appear to be structured around key thematic nodes that have significantly higher degrees, suggesting they may serve as central hubs within their respective communities. These hubs could be focal points for the flow of information or interactions within the network, implying that they are important in the overall connectivity of the network. The degree of these hubs could also indicate their importance in the network's functionality, particularly if the network represents biological materials where certain properties or elements are critical. 9. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. Figure 5. Comprehensive analysis of the structural properties of communities within a network, showing size of all communities, A, average node degree for each community, B, the average clustering coefficient for each community, C, and the average between the centrality of the nodes in each community, D. Panel B illustrates the average node degree per community, demonstrating generally consistent internal connectivity with notable outliers, indicative of more densely interconnected communities. Panel C explores the average clustering coefficient, revealing that while most communities do not show a propensity for tight clustering, a select few deviate with higher coefficients, suggesting localized pockets of close-knit nodes. Panel D examines the average between the centrality for the most influential nodes in each community, displaying a rather even distribution across the network with slight variations, implying a distributed rather than centralized control over the network's connectivity. These metrics provide insight into the network's topology, highlighting the balance between uniformly distributed influence and the existence of specialized clusters within the network's architecture. Panel E depicts an analysis of community structure in the graph. The top panel shows the modularity score, and the bottom one community connectivity. There, we plot the average number of edges within communities to assess how many edges are there on average that connect nodes within the same community. The data on the right depicts the average intercommunity edges, designating the average number of edges that connect nodes from different communities. This data underscores the finding that this network seems to exhibit strong community structure, with more connections within communities than between them. Panel F shows the degree distribution of the global network on a log-log scale, with the empirical data in blue, and the best fit power law model in a dashed red line. The power law fit appears to follow the distribution of the data reasonably well, especially in the tail, high degree region. 10. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. For a deeper analysis of the scaling behavior of the graph, Figure 5e shows the degree distribution of a network on a log-log scale, with the empirical data in blue and the best fit power law model in a dashed red line. The power law fit appears to follow the distribution of the data reasonably well, especially in the tail, high degree region. The power law exponent alpha equals 2.8786, which falls within the range typically observed in scale-free networks, 1 alpha, 3. This suggests that the network may exhibit scale-free properties. Further, the standard error of alpha equals 0.0698 is relatively small, indicating a high level of precision in the estimation of the power law exponent. The log likelihood ratio R equals for 0.1526, which is a measure of how much better the power law model fits the data compared to the exponential model. A positive R value indicates that the power law model is indeed a better fit. The p-value is very small, about 3.29 ER05. Which statistically significantly suggests that the power law model is a better fit than the exponential model. Table 2 summarizes these results. From the fit and these statistical test results, we have strong evidence to support the claim that the network is scale-free. Specifically, the value of alpha within the expected range for scale-free networks, the statistically significant log likelihood ratio favoring the power law model over the exponential model, and the visual agreement between the empirical data and the power law model all support this conclusion. Table 2, result of the fit statistics comparing power law to exponential distribution for network degree distribution. Statistic value power law exponent, alpha, 2.8786 standard error of alpha 0.0698 log likelihood ratio, R, for 0.152. Scale-free networks are characterized by their degree distribution following a power law, at least asymptotically. This means that a few nodes in the network have a very high degree, a large number of connections to other nodes, while most nodes have a relatively low degree. This distribution results in a network that is highly resistant to random failures but vulnerable to targeted attacks on its most connected nodes. This property facilitates the effective use of these graphs for knowledge extraction. For instance, the presence of hub nodes makes it easier to navigate the graph efficiently. Since hubs are connected to many other nodes, algorithms as those that will be developed as part of this paper can leverage these hubs to reduce the path length between distant nodes, enhancing the efficiency of search and information retrieval processes. It also allows us to explore a number of alternative paths that connect nodes, leading to powerful discovery mechanisms to explore and reason over various concepts and potential relationships. 2.2 Extraction of multiple graph traversal paths via ranked combinatorial analysis of cosine similarities. Tracing linkages refers to the process of systematically following and identifying connections or relationships between various entities or concepts within graph. In the context of knowledge graphs, tracing linkages involves navigating through the nodes and edges of the graph to understand how different elements are interconnected, resulting in one or more possible paths. This exploration helps reveal patterns, dependencies, and associations that may not be immediately apparent, thereby facilitating a deeper understanding of the underlying relationships and facilitating tasks such as knowledge extraction, inference, and reasoning. We can apply this concept to extract multiple paths between dissimilar concepts by identifying two or more search terms that define the beginning and end, and we then identify the shortest path between them. We use node embeddings as an effective way to represent the graph structure, enabling the application of machine learning algorithms on graphs. These embeddings are dense vector representations of the content of nodes in a graph, capturing the essence of a node's features. As was shown in the previous section, embeddings of nodes with similar structural roles or within the same neighborhood are closer in the vector space. We identify top-ranked nodes based on their similarity to a given node or a set of nodes through cosine similarity. Cosine similarity quantifies the cosine of the angle between two vectors in an n-dimensional space, which in this context are the embeddings of two nodes. It is defined as cosine similarity A, B equals A times B A B, 1. Where A and B are the embedding vectors of two nodes, times denotes the dot product, and A and B are the Euclidean norms of the vectors. The similarity score ranges from -1 to 1, where 1 indicates identical directionality, high similarity, 0 indicates orthogonality, no similarity, and -1 indicates opposite directionality, high dissimilarity. In the context of node embeddings, a higher cosine similarity score between two nodes suggests that they are more similar in terms of their structural roles or positions in the graph. To identify top-ranked nodes relative to a specific node, the cosine similarity between the target node's embedding and every other node's embedding is computed. Nodes are then ranked based on their similarity scores, with higher scores indicating a closer or more relevant relationship to the target node. The resulting set of nodes is now used to construct a new subgraph, for instance based on identifying the shortest path between them. We can use different approaches towards the construction of the new subgraph by including 11. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph. Higher order neighbors, for instance 2 hops. We can also identify a ranking of the cosine similarity results to assess an ordered set of nodes that best fit our search term, resulting in multiple combinatorial options to form several paths. Finally, it is noted that the search term does not have to be limited to describe short terms, it can consist of an abstract or longer document. This is possible since we create an embedding vector that is independent of the length of the source. As an example, we use the terms of graphene and silk and determine the path to connect these concepts. The nodes are graphene, strength, biological materials, silk. Since each of the edges in our graph has labels that delineates the relationship between concepts, we can also identify those in the integrated delineation the path between these two concepts. The result for the example above is graphene improves strength is exhibited due to hierarchical microstructures that allow for damage tolerance at multiple length scales. Biological materials provide functionality silk. In another example, we use two terms inkjet printer for living tissues and spider silk protome. These terms do not exist verbatim as node labels, however, nodes labeled inkjet-based bioprinting and spider silk protein are identified as closest match, with 0.89 and 0.91 cosine similarities, respectively. The resulting path is then inkjet-based bioprinting lacking structural integrity. It dictates through surrounding permeable shell structure. Cortex has tight bonding due to ridges and smooth transition. Feather / arches has due to synergetic effect between cortex and foam components. Enhanced mechanical properties are realized in spinning and nanoindentation experiments. Functional silk fibers. Constituent proteins of silk proteins. Chemical composition of spider silk protein. Additional context for these analyses can be gleaned by considering connected nodes and a deeper investigation of the subgraph structure. We note that generally, the use of embeddings also is to incorporate longer text, depending on the embedding model used. In the case of the model used here, we can provide text chunks of up to 512 tokens to match a node. These examples also illustrate the mechanics by which graph represents provide a solid foundation to discovery connections. For instance, one scientific paper may discuss assorts of bioprinting methods, whereas another paper may discuss silk proteins. A connection between these two concepts would not emerge from either one of these papers alone. However, when ontological knowledge graphs are constructed from both, we find overlapping concepts that provide a bridge between the technical content in both papers. 2.3 Reasoning over the graph, graph traversal-based question answering. Graph traversal by tracing linkages, as discussed in the preceding section, allows us to find connections between concepts that have not been established before, or that have not understood to be related in any known manner, and while these paths are valuable on their own, e.g., for human interpretation, sophisticated reasoning with special purpose and highly intelligent generative AI models can provide deep insights and even facilitate discovery of new ideas, connections, and relationships. This is because these models will overlay the extracted graph structures with their own understanding, which triggers models to expand their thinking, and specifically extrapolating towards ideas that have not been associated or known before. What is most important is that this strategy effectively stimulates the capacity of AI models, specifically multimodal LLMs, to move beyond knowledge retrieval and towards generation of new connections of information, and hence, new knowledge. See Figure 1a. We postulate that exploring complex graph traversals offers fertile grounds for analysis. We can either identify a single most likely path or sample multiple paths. For instance, Figure 6a-b depicts two graphs generated by developing all possible connections between the top two nodes. This results in four paths, featuring the top path 0 to 0, 0 to 1, 1 to 0, and 1 to 1. These examples explore new subgraphs extracted to capture connections between disparate concepts such as between a flower and an acre-inspired cement, or proteins found in silks connecting composites for airplanes. Building on this, in Figure 6c the D the same original paths are analyzed, but the graphs are constructed by merging all nodes, even if they come from different paths. This results in a significantly distinct topology of the resulting graph structure and offers novel connectivities between concepts and their relationships as encoded in the edges. This points to great flexibility by which graphs can be formulated and ultimately be used for reasoning applications. The ontological knowledge graphs can be utilized to support reasoning in scientific research, such as proposing hypotheses about material properties or predicting the likely outcomes of combining different materials. From another perspective, they can help identify gaps in knowledge, suggest new areas for research, and facilitate understanding of complex interrelations in materials science or across different disciplines. In the first experiment, we pose the query. 12. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge. Figure 6, knowledge graphs derived from multipath sampling, for two distinct cases, Panel A, a flower connecting an acre-inspired cement, and Panel B, proteins found in silks connecting composites for airplanes. These graphs represent relationships among various concepts. In these two graphs, each of the paths is rendered separately. In Panel C and D the same original paths are analyzed, but the graphs are constructed by merging all nodes, even if they come from different paths. This results in a significantly distinct topology of the resulting graphs with interesting new connections formed. Nodes with high node degree are plotted in dark green, and with low node degree, in light green. In Panel C, the node with the highest node degree is mechanical properties, and in Panel D, composite materials. Panels E and F show graphs derived from multipath sampling from flavor to sustainability, based on the augmented graph that includes data from adversarial XLORA sampling. These graphs represent relationships among various concepts, whereas in Panel E each of the paths is rendered separately, and in Panel F the graph is constructed by merging all nodes, even if they come from different paths. Shown in text box 1. We discuss the results from several LLMs to offer a comparative analysis between different types of models. As can be seen, these paths provide for a rich representation of relationships between seemingly unrelated concepts. We now explore responses to the same prompt from 3 different LLMs, each of them aiming to find relationships between a flower and an acre-inspired cement. First, the response of XLORA 24 is shown in text box 2. Here, a particularly interesting concept proposed is the study of the interlocking mechanisms of chitosan, a natural polymer derived from chitin found in the exoskeleton of crustaceans, and water through hydrogen bonding and covalent bonds. Next, the response from bio-inspired LLM Mixtral is shown in text box 3. Again we note a suggestion to explore the use of hydrogen bonding or covalent bonding, this time in conjunction with polyethylene glycol dimethacrylate, PEGMA. PEGMA is widely used as a cross-linking agent in the creation of polymers, particularly hydrogels, due to its ability to form networks through polymerization, and could indeed be a useful method to improve nacre-based materials. Additionally, it is suggested that research could investigate the stress-strain behavior of dental enamel at different sizes and twist angles to investigate how this behavior influences the mechanical properties of nacre-inspired cement. This is an interesting idea that builds on research reported in recent papers, 26, but applied here to a new class of nacre-inspired materials that incorporate mixtures of PEGMA and chitosan. Finally, the response from GPT-VIFA is shown in text box 4. This response includes several deep insights, such as the use of superhydrophobic surfaces, like those of rose petals, in influencing mechanical properties. As in the previous responses, the model suggests that chitosan may be interlocked through hydrogen bonding and covalent bonds formed between pegma and other additives. The study of dental enamel is also suggested in several of the responses, which suggests that important cues can be taken from this material that is the hardest and most mineralized substance in the human body. The use of self-cleaning surfaces or materials that can capture and convert CO2 is another interesting suggestion made. Amongst these three models, GPT-4 shows probably the most impressive reasoning capability and the most detailed response. For each of the interactions, follow-up queries can be used to go deeper into an analysis of the design features. 13. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. You are given a set of information from a graph that describes the relationship between materials, structure, properties, and properties. You analyze these logically through reasoning. Primary combination, path from 0 to 0. A flower rose petals provides superhydrophobic surfaces provides protection contributed by a mechanical properties has dental enamel has been analyzed through studies of different sizes and twist angles stress strain behavior influences a nacre mimetic composite and nacre inspired cement. This represents the main combination of nodes in the knowledge graph between a flower and nacre inspired cement. The following represent another possible combination of paths, providing different insights or complementing the primary path. Alternative combination, path from 0 to 1. A flower rose petals provides superhydrophobic surfaces occurs when contact angle is greater than 150 degrees or water major contributory factor regulating mechanical properties from molecular level to fascicle levels mechanical properties it can improve chitosan go interlocks through hydrogen bonding interlocks through covalent bonds formed between pegma and CS brick a component of nacre-like materials and nacre inspired cement. Alternative combination path from 1 to 0. A flower rose provide functionalities as biological materials, provide functionalities as mechanical properties has dental enamel has been analyzed through studies of different sizes and twist angles stress strain behavior, influences of nacre mimetic composite and nacre inspired cement. Alternative combination, path from 1 to 1. A flower rose provide functionalities as biological materials can be integrated of novel functionalities can be integrated functional materials to have enhanced toughness contributed by a nacre-like materials as nacre inspired cement. Carefully read the paths and summarize scientific insights in several bullet points. Then be creative and propose new research ideas. Think step by step. Text box 1, example query developed from a path analysis of knowledge graphs. In the example a combinatorial set of node ranking up to 2 is used, leading to 4 paths, 0 to 0, 0 to 1, 1 to 0, 1 to 1. We color the beginning and end concepts in the primary path in red and blue font, respectively, and also highlight the key instruction. Because LLMs can ingest complex multimodal information, we can provide the graphs themselves, additional context, and instructions through prompting. XLOI. The primary combination highlights the connection between flowers, rose petals, superhydrophobic surfaces, protection, and dental enamel. This path suggests that the mechanical properties of dental enamel can be influenced by the stress-strain behavior of nacre-inspired cement. The alternative combination involving water and chitosan suggests that the interlocking of these materials through hydrogen bonding and covalent bonds can improve the mechanical properties of nacre-like materials, which can be applied to nacre-inspired cement. The path connecting roses, biological materials, and functional materials suggests that novel functionalities can be integrated into these materials, potentially enhancing their toughness. The final alternative combination highlights the potential for integrating biological materials and functional materials to create nacre-inspired cement with enhanced properties. Research ideas. Investigate the relationship between the stress-strain behavior of nacre-inspired cement and the mechanical properties of dental enamel. Study the interlocking mechanisms of chitosan and water to improve the mechanical properties of nacre-like materials. Explore the integration of novel functionalities into biological materials and functional materials to enhance the toughness of nacre-inspired cement. Develop new methods for integrating biological materials and functional materials into nacre-inspired cement to create materials with improved properties. Text box 2, response from XLOIA, 24, to the prompt delineated in text box 1, seeking to uncover relationships between a flower and a nacre-inspired cement. 14. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. Bio-inspired LLM mixtural. The primary combination of nodes in the knowledge graph represents the main connection between a flower and nacre-inspired cement. The alternative combinations provide additional insights or complement the primary path by highlighting different aspects of the relationship between materials, structure, properties, and properties. These combinations can be summarized as follows. The primary path highlights the connection between a flower's superhydrophobic surfaces and nacre-inspired cement's protection provided by mechanical properties. This path suggests that the mechanical properties of nacre-inspired cement can be influenced by the stress-strain behavior of dental enamel, which has been analyzed through studies of different sizes and twist angles. The alternative path from 0 to 1 emphasizes the major contributory factor regulating mechanical properties from the molecular level to the fascicle level, which is water. This path suggests that the mechanical properties of chitosan can be improved by interlocks formed through hydrogen bonding and covalent bonds with pegma, leading to enhanced toughness in nacre-like materials and nacre-inspired cement. The alternative path from 1 to 0 highlights the functionalities provided by biological materials, which can be integrated into novel functionalities in functional materials. This path suggests that nacre-like materials can contribute to enhanced toughness in nacre-inspired cement. The alternative path from 1 to 1 emphasizes the connection between functionalities provided by biological materials and novel functionalities in functional materials. This path suggests that nacre-inspired cement can be designed with enhanced toughness by integrating nacre-like materials. Based on these insights, new research ideas could include exploring different methods for integrating nacre-like materials into functional materials to enhance their mechanical properties, such as through hydrogen bonding or covalent bonding with pegma. Additionally, further studies could investigate the stress-strain behavior of dental enamel at different sizes and twist angles to better understand how this behavior influences the mechanical properties of nacre-inspired cement. Finally, exploring the functionalities provided by biological materials in novel functionalities in functional materials could lead to new applications for nacre-inspired cement in various industries. Text box 3, response from bio-inspired LLM mixtral to the prompt delineated in text box 1, seeking to uncover relationships between a flower and a nacre-inspired cement. By exploring how the various ideas can be integrated to develop new nacre-inspired cements. We do this by providing the previous responses, followed by this instruction. Identify specific material design for nacre-inspired cements that combine these ideas. Focus on technical details of new concepts never explored before, and explain the reasoning behind them. XLO I-24 responds as shown in text box 5. A key prediction is that the suggested composite material features chitosan and pegma in a layered structure where the chitosan provides biological functionality and interlocks with pegma through hydrogen bonding and covalent bonds formed between the methacrylate groups of pegma and the amine groups of chitosan. The model predicts that this would result in enhanced mechanical properties, such as toughness, due to the interlocking mechanisms. The response from bio-inspired LLM mixtral is shown in text box 6. The responses covers a variety of aspects similar to the previous one, including the investigation of interlocking mechanisms of chitosan and water in nacre-like materials. The model also suggests exploring the relationships between flowers, rose petals, superhydrophobic surfaces, protection, dental enamel, chitosan, water, biological materials, functional materials, and nacre-inspired cement to develop new strategies for improving the mechanical properties. We notice that in the response, the model does perhaps not clearly understand that nacre-inspired cement does not yet exist, and is supposed to be designed, as it asks to investigate the stress-strain behavior of nacre-inspired cement and its influence on the mechanical properties of dental enamel. Perhaps the causality should be reversed where we use dental enamel as a way to design the nacre-inspired cement materials. One could query the model again to that effect in follow-up interactions, to help clarify this issue. As an alternative, the response from GPT-4 is shown in text box 7. The model produces a detailed conceptual materials design that can form a foundation for a manufacturing process in the lab. The model specifically suggests to use a mix of chitosan for organic layers and modified cement particles as the inorganic component. The model predicts that chitosan not only acts as a binder but, through its inherent properties, introduces hydrophilic sites, which is likely due to its cationic nature. The presence of free amino groups, NH2, in the glucosamine units of chitosan contributes to its hydrophilicity, where these amino groups can be protonated in acidic solutions, forming NH3+ groups, which enhance the material's solubility in water and its ability to interact with water molecules. Pegma is introduced not only to improve the mechanical integrity through covalent bonding, but also to capitalize on its water-resisting capabilities. Here, it is important to note that cross-linked networks formed from pegma can exhibit varying degrees of water. 15. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. GPT-4. Analyzing the provided paths from the knowledge graph, we can extract several scientific insights. Superhydrophobicity and mechanical properties, the primary path and the first alternative combination highlight the role of superhydrophobic surfaces, like those of rose petals, in influencing mechanical properties. Superhydrophobicity, characterized by a water contact angle greater than 150 degrees, is a key factor in enhancing the mechanical properties of materials from the molecular to the fascicle level. Biomimicry in material science. All paths emphasize the importance of biomimicry, where biological materials, e.g., rose petals, dental enamel, inspire the design of synthetic materials with superior properties, such as nacre-inspired cement. This approach is pivotal in developing materials with enhanced toughness and mechanical properties. Role of chemical bonding in material properties. The alternative path from 0 to 1 introduces the concept of chemical bonding, hydrogen bonding and covalent bonds, in improving the mechanical properties of materials. Specifically, it mentions how chitosan interlocks through hydrogen bonding and covalent bonds formed between pegma and CS contribute to the formation of nacre-like materials. Stress-strain behavior in material analysis. The primary path and one alternative path discuss the importance of studying stress-strain behavior in understanding the mechanical properties of materials. This is exemplified by the analysis of dental enamel, which provides insights into the design of nacre-mimetic composites. Integration of novel functionalities. The last alternative path suggests that the integration of novel functionalities into biological materials can lead to the development of functional materials with enhanced toughness, contributing to the creation of nacre-like materials. Based on these insights, several new research ideas can be proposed. Development of superhydrophobic coatings inspired by rose petals. Investigate the application of superhydrophobic coatings, inspired by the surface structure of rose petals, in various industries, e.g., automotive, aerospace, to enhance material longevity and resistance to environmental factors. Synthesis of hybrid materials combining biological and synthetic elements. Explore the synthesis of hybrid materials that combine biological elements, e.g., chitosan, with synthetic polymers through specific bonding mechanisms to create materials with tailored mechanical properties for use in medical implants or protective gear. Advanced studies on stress-strain behavior in biomimetic materials. Conduct in-depth studies on the stress-strain behavior of biomimetic materials, focusing on how different sizes and twist angles can influence the mechanical properties. This could lead to the development of materials with customizable flexibility and strength for construction or manufacturing applications. Integration of functionalities for environmental sustainability. Research the integration of novel functionalities into materials that contribute to environmental sustainability, such as self-cleaning surfaces or materials that can capture and convert CO2. This could involve the development of nacre-inspired materials with added functionalities for use in green buildings or environmental remediation. Computational modeling of nacre-inspired materials. Utilize computational modeling to explore the structure-property relationships in nacre-inspired materials. This could help in identifying key factors that contribute to their enhanced toughness and guide the design of new materials with optimized properties for specific applications. Text box 4. Response from GPT-4 to the prompt delineated in text box 1, seeking to uncover relationships between a flower and nacre-inspired cement. XLOI. One possible design for nacre-inspired cement that combines these ideas is a composite material consisting of chitosan and pegma, polyethylene glycol, dimethacrylate, in a layered structure. The chitosan provides biological functionality and interlocks with pegma through hydrogen bonding and covalent bonds formed between the methacrylate groups of pegma and the amine groups of chitosan. This results in enhanced mechanical properties, such as toughness, due to the interlocking mechanisms. To further improve the mechanical properties, novel functionalities can be integrated into the chitosan layer, such as doping with silicon nanoparticles or graphene oxide. These functionalities can enhance the strength and durability of the material, making it suitable for various applications, such as dental restoration or biomedical implants. The reasoning behind this design is based on the understanding that the interlocking mechanisms of chitosan and pegma can improve the mechanical properties of nacre-like materials, and that the integration of novel functionalities can enhance the toughness of the material. Additionally, the use of chitosan as a biological material provides potential biocompatibility and biodegradability advantages. The layered structure allows for the incorporation of different functionalities and materials, creating a versatile and customizable material for various applications. Text box 5. Follow-up response from XLOIA 24, querying the model for specific material design for nacre-inspired cements. That combined the ideas identified in the earlier response shown in text box 2. 16. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. Bio-inspired LLM Mixtral. Based on the provided information, we can identify several research ideas for developing nacre-inspired cements with enhanced properties. These ideas involve exploring the relationships between flowers, rose petals, superhydrophobic surfaces, protection, dental enamel, chitosan, water, biological materials, functional materials, and nacre-inspired cement. One research idea is to investigate the stress-strain behavior of nacre-inspired cement and its influence on the mechanical properties of dental enamel. This could involve studying the deformation mechanisms of dental enamel under different loading conditions and comparing them with the stress-strain behavior of nacre-inspired cement. By understanding how nacre-inspired cement affects dental enamel's mechanical properties, we can develop new strategies for improving dental restorations. Another research idea is to study the interlocking mechanisms of chitosan and water in nacre-like materials. This could involve investigating how hydrogen bonding and covalent bonds formed between pegma and CS contribute to the mechanical properties of nacre-like materials. By understanding how these interactions affect the mechanical properties of nacre-like materials, we can develop new strategies for improving the toughness of nacre-inspired cement. A third research idea is to explore integrating novel functionalities into biological materials and functional materials to enhance the toughness of nacre-inspired cement. This could involve developing new methods for incorporating functional groups or nanoparticles into biological materials or functional materials, which can improve their mechanical properties. By understanding how these functionalities affect the mechanical properties of nacre-inspired cement, we can develop new strategies for creating materials with improved toughness. A final research idea is to develop new methods for integrating biological materials and functional materials into nacre-inspired cement to create materials with improved properties. This could involve developing new techniques for combining biological materials with functional materials or exploring new ways to incorporate biological materials into nacre-inspired cement. By understanding how these combinations affect the mechanical properties of nacre-inspired cement, we can develop new strategies for creating materials with improved toughness. Overall, these research ideas involve exploring the relationships between flowers, rose petals, superhydrophobic surfaces, protection, dental enamel, chitosan, water, biological materials, functional materials, and nacre-inspired cement to develop new strategies for improving the mechanical properties of nacre-inspired cement. By understanding how these relationships affect the mechanical properties of nacre-inspired cement, we can develop new strategies for creating materials with improved toughness. Text box 6, follow-up response bio-inspired LLM mixtural, querying the model for specific material design for nacre-inspired cements that combine the ideas identified in the earlier response shown in text box 3. Resistance, where the design leveraged pegma not for outright water repellent but for a controlled interaction with water such that while the material may absorb water, it does so in a way that doesn't compromise its structural integrity, and the absorbed water might even participate in beneficial processes such as the curing of cement or contribute to its mechanical properties, akin to how natural nacre manages moisture. It is further suggested that the cement surface should be engineered to mimic a particular type of microscale roughness by etching micro to nanoscale patterns onto the cement surface layer, potentially through laser etching or additive manufacturing techniques. The etched surface is then coated with a thin layer of silicon-based compounds, e.g., polydimethylsilicon, PDMS, to enhance water repellency. The model also suggests an innovative use of water to regulate the cement's mechanical properties via the material's porosity for optimal workability and curing times. Another feature is the incorporation of phase change materials within the cement matrix or surface coatings to endow the cement with thermal energy regulation capabilities. This could allow for the cement can absorb excess heat during peak temperatures and release it during cooler times, contributing to energy efficiency in buildings. Specifically, the broader spectrum of functionalities, while allowing for incorporation into existing cement production lines, allows for adapting to changing environmental conditions and reducing maintenance needs over time. These are remarkably detailed and nuanced descriptions of novel design strategies. Analyzing the entire set of responses, we obtained a broad set of ideas for materials design. The XLOIA response highlights mechanical property enhancements through biochemical interlocking and the potential for further improvements by incorporating novel materials such as silicon nanoparticles or graphene oxide. The response is quite technical, directly addressing the material design process, and shows a clear understanding of the biochemical principles involved. It's tailored towards a scientific audience, providing a detailed material composition and its expected mechanical advantages. Bio-inspired LLM mixtural takes a broader research-oriented approach, suggesting several ideas for exploration rather than a specific material design. It touches on various aspects such as stress-strain behavior of the materials, including dentin, interlocking mechanisms, and the integration of functionalities to enhance toughness. However, it is less direct in proposing a concrete material design compared to the first response. The GPT for response stands out as the best due to its detailed approach that combines technical specificity with practical application. It offers a comprehensive breakdown of the material design, including base matrix composition, surface functionalization, and mechanical properties enhancement, along with the reasoning behind each choice. The response not only provides a comprehensive 17. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. GPT's 4. Given the insights from the combinations presented, a novel material design approach for nacre-inspired cement involves leveraging the relationship between superhydrophobic surfaces, mechanical properties influenced by biological materials, and the integration of novel functionalities. This approach would explore the merging of biomimicry with advanced functional material engineering, aiming to create nacre-inspired cement that not only mimics the mechanical properties of natural nacre but also introduces new capabilities such as self-cleaning, enhanced durability, and adaptability to environmental changes. Here's a breakdown of the concept. Conceptual material design, multifunctional nacre-inspired cement. Base matrix composition. Primary component, the base of the cement would mimic the hierarchical structure of natural nacre, utilizing a mix of chitosan for organic layers and modified cement particles as the inorganic component. The chitosan not only acts as a binder but, through its inherent properties, introduces hydrophilic sites. Modification to the chitosan cement matrix, polyethylene glycol dimethacrylate, PEGMA, is introduced, not only to improve the mechanical integrity through covalent bonding but also to capitalize on its water-resisting capabilities. Surface functionalization for superhydrophobicity. Inspired by the rose petal structure contributing to superhydrophobicity, the cement surface will be engineered to mimic this microscale roughness. This is achieved by etching micro to nanoscale patterns onto the cement surface layer, potentially through laser etching or additive manufacturing techniques. The etched surface is then coated with a thin layer of silicon-based compounds, e.g., polydimethylsilicon, PDMS, to enhance water repellency. A crucial aspect here is ensuring the surface's ability to maintain a superhydrophobic state, characterized by a contact angle greater than 150 degrees, which contributes significantly to its self-cleaning and protective properties against water and pollutant ingress. Mechanical properties enhancement. The hierarchical structure, akin to natural nacre, along with the integration of PEGMA-CS complexes, aims to mimic the nacre's stress-strain behavior. This means that under stress, the cement exhibits increased strain to failure, absorbing and dissipating energy efficiently. Water, a seemingly simple molecule, is harnessed to regulate the cement's mechanical properties from a molecular level, ensuring that the material's porosity and water content are optimized for toughness while maintaining manageable workability and curing times. Integration of novel functionalities. Biofunctional integration. The concept also involves embedding bioactive compounds or microcapsules that can respond to environmental stimuli, e.g., pH changes, moisture, by releasing substances that could either contribute to the cement's self-healing or offer prognostic capabilities for infrastructure health monitoring. Adaptability. The inclusion of phase change materials, PCMs, within the cement matrix or surface coatings to imbibe the cement with thermal energy regulation capabilities. This means the cement can absorb excess heat during peak temperatures and release it during cooler times, contributing to energy efficiency in buildings. Reasoning behind the design. The design is drawn from the intricate interplay of natural functionality seen in roses, superhydrophobicity, structural color, and the robust yet adaptable mechanical properties seen in natural materials like nacre. By mimicking these characteristics, the novel cement aims not just for structural integrity but for a broader spectrum of functionalities that extend its utility in modern construction and sustainability. The choice of materials and strategies focuses on ease of integration into existing cement production lines, with particular emphasis on adapting to changing environmental conditions and reducing maintenance needs over time. This multifunctional nacre-inspired cement represents a forward-thinking approach to material design, embodying the principles of biomimetic engineering and functional material integration for sustainable and resilient infrastructure solutions. Text box 7, follow-up response from GPT for querying the model for specific material design for nacre-inspired cements that combine the ideas identified in the earlier response shown in text box 4. 18. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. Material design but also explains the rationale behind each component, showcasing a deeper understanding of how biomimicry and functional material engineering can be utilized to create novel construction materials. The advantage of using multiple LLMs to generate responses is that we can synthesize all of these into a joint response. To do this, we asked GPT-4 to integrate the entire set of these responses into a summary, depicted in Table 3. This summary encapsulates the most prevalent concepts derived from the original queries. We emphasize here that an important feature of interactions with LLMs is the possibility to conduct follow-up queries. We already demonstrated this in the examples above by tasking the model to provide more details about a specific aspect of their responses. This can be extended easily beyond one interaction, and even be automated into a multi-agent strategy where agents can autonomously develop new questions in a continued, theoretically an infinite loop of knowledge seeking. If graphs and other context can be updated with real-time data, such as experimental or computational results, this can be a basis for powerful artificial discovery systems. Table 3, Materials Design Analysis for a nacre-inspired cement. Design feature likely material function, how this design element contributes to the material behavior. Manufacturing approach. Lead structure of chitosan and PEGMA enhances toughness through interlocking mechanisms co-layering via chemical bonding and hydrogen bonding doping with silicon nanoparticles or graphene oxide strength and durability enhancement incorporation during the chitosan layer formation superhydrophobic surface engineering self-cleaning, enhanced durability, and adaptability to environmental changes laser etching or additive manufacturing followed by PDMS coating integration of bio active compounds or microcapsule self-healing or prognostic capabilities for health monitoring embedding during the cement matrix formation, inclusion of phase change materials, PCMs, thermal energy regulation, contributing to energy efficiency in buildings, integration within the cement matrix or as surface coatings, biofunctional integration, biocompatibility and potentially biodegradability advantages utilizing biologically active materials like chitosan. 2. For isomorphism analysis across distinct graph structures. Graphs not only allow for analysis of knowledge through reasoning of its connections or paths within, but also provides fertile grounds to understand how complex, dissimilar domains are related. We next explore how graphs can be used to relate dissimilar concepts by identifying structurally similar or identical graphs in sets of distinct knowledge representations between which no shared or common nodes exist. This is done by identifying graph isomorphisms, 22:20. In such cases we would not be able to identify graph traversal paths as done in the preceding sections since knowledge is separated in their representation. We can solve this issue by using graph isomorphism as an alternative framework to achieve the goal to relate concepts and use generative AI to reason over and to discover new insights even across areas of knowledge between which no shared nodes exist. Rather, in this case, we focus on the graph structure itself, which provides an alternative way to utilize such models effectively. This can also be done in graphs where shared paths exist and hence provide yet another level of data extraction that we can utilize. Graph isomorphism is defined between two graphs G1 equals N1, E1, and G2 equals N2, E2. The graphs are isomorphic if there exists a bijection F, V1, V2 satisfying the adjacency preservation condition for any two nodes U, V set membership symbol N1, U, V is set membership symbol E1 if and only if F, U, F, V is set membership symbol E2. This bijection F maps nodes of G1 to nodes of G2 in a way that preserves the edge connectivity structure of the graphs, making them structurally identical despite potentially differing representations. 22. We use computational methods to discover such structures from ontological knowledge graphs. We first conduct an experiment where we construct a new knowledge graph from a text that describes an analysis of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, 27, to then explore relationships with the original knowledge graph derived from biological materials. The isomorphism analysis seeks to discover similarity in the knowledge graphs despite the content being about very different subjects, whereby no nodes are shared and hence no direct connection may exist. The results are shown in Figure 7. We focus the analysis on the giant component of the isomorphism and identify those with high average scale degree and large cluster sizes of at least 15 nodes. This helps us to narrow the solutions to more meaningful identifiable subgraphs as their size is sufficiently large to encode complex relationships. It is noted that isomorphism in this context does not mean that the subjects are necessarily related, but rather that the way knowledge is structured or the patterns of connections between concepts are similar. Therefore, we find that different domains of knowledge might have underlying structural similarities when it comes to how we categorize and relate concepts, even if the domains themselves have not yet been related or are not understood to be related, as of yet. This structural similarity could be used to apply analytical techniques from one field to another. For instance, methodologies. 19. Accelerating scientific discovery with generative knowledge extraction, graph-based representation, and graph reasoning. Used to understand and analyze the structure of music could potentially be adapted to understand or design the structure of bio-inspired materials, or vice versa. Its focus on patterns and relationships emphasizes a mechanistic dimension, where we want to understand and relate how phenomena, e.g. a material property like toughness, brittleness, resilience, etc., emerge from the elementary material building blocks. By understanding how to relate structurally identical mechanisms, but implemented in clearly distinct manifestations, e.g. we make materials from amino acids versus music from notes, we can gain a deeper understanding of connecting disciplines rigorously. 20. This can also help us find universal principles by which natural or synthetic systems function or what their underpinning driving forces are. We present the result of such an analysis in Figure 7. The structural similarity between the two graphs is clearly visible, and the relations between the two graphs provides interesting insights that can be used, for instance, in design applications. 20. Specifically, the bio-inspired graph provides a rich reservoir of local graph features that can be compared against other graph structures of various kinds. One can also envision expanding the smaller of two graphs by extrapolating on isomorphic mappings of node and edge features, thereby expanding a corpus of knowledge. For instance, the subgraph identified from the bio-inspired corpus connects to many other nodes, whereas the Beethoven-based graph is much smaller and limited in size. We can use the known structural extensions of the first graph to estimate how and in what specific manner the second graph may be extended. This can lead to an extension of knowledge in a field that is less well studied. How can we use these two graphs? A semantic analysis is a powerful way to relate knowledge graphs identified through isomorphic mapping. This involves interpreting the meaning and significance of nodes, concepts, and edges, relationships, within the graphs, and attempting to relate them across their respective domains. By examining the nodes and the labels on the edges that connect them, we can deduce how concepts are related and what those relationships signify. In the bio-inspired corpus, there is a focus on the application of biological principles to engineering problems, while in the Beethoven corpus, there's an intertwining of musical theory with historical context. Regarding the structure and the flow of information, the structure of the graph suggests a logical flow of information. For example, in the Beethoven graph, the historical fact of Beethoven's deafness is linked to the composer, which might imply a narrative or explanatory pathway in the corpus. The terminology used in each of the graphs is domain-specific, indicating specialized knowledge and the context of the discussions within each corpus. This level of specificity is key for semantic analysis as it defines the scope and depth of the subject matter. The semantic analysis reveals that both graphs are complex networks of related concepts, indicating that the corpora they are derived from likely contain rich, detailed discussions within their respective fields. Despite the different subject matter, the structure of the knowledge graph suggests a similar complexity in the relationships between concepts, pointing to a shared method of intellectual inquiry and organization of knowledge. A formal analysis can be conducted because node mappings between isomorphic graphs represent a one-to-one correspondence where each node in one graph is associated with exactly one node in the other, preserving the graph structure. In practical terms, this allows us to discover functional similarity between entities represented by nodes across different contexts or systems. Tables S2 and S3 summarize isomorphic mappings between the nodes and edges, respectively, for the two graphs, developed by GPT-4. For instance, in our case the left graph represents a